Andrew Hazen, very nice to see you today. When was it that you first realized that you were a serial entrepreneur?
I'm thinking because I do own serialentrepreneurs.com, but I probably, came upon that realization sometime around 1998, 1999 when I was in law school.
So before that, what was your first job?
My first job was a paper boy for Newsday on Long Island. Grew up on the South Shore. And from there, I worked at Natlax, which was a clothing store, where I took Champion sweatshirts, which were back then maybe $40, $50, and I would bleach them with different designs and patterns in my parents' garage and sell them for $90 because they were, a different design. And then from Natlax, I worked at the Grateful Deli in Wantaw for a year or two, maybe a year. And then by 10th grade, this is all before 10th grade. And then by 10th grade, when I was about 15, I started working at Bagel Boss in Merrick when I was 15 or 16 years old. From there, I went to high school, college, and law school.
You founded one of the first digital marketing companies that was incredibly successful. I believe it went public. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. We didn't go public. We were acquired ultimately by a public company. So maybe through acquisition, we became public.
All right.
But it's a company that I started in about 1998, 1999, when I had just started practicing law, which I wasn't too happy about, doing mortgage foreclosures, basically throwing people out of their houses.
Mm-hmm.
And, pretty early on, and I don't claim to be the pioneer, but definitely started with the pioneers in doing what was back then website optimization, now SEO, search engine optimization, and self-taught myself at law school. I was living in Michigan. Everyone was back in New York. When I didn't go to class for 3 hours a day, I was figuring out how to be number one in the search engines. This is before Google. This is Alta Vista, Lycos, Hotbot, Excite. And I taught myself this opportunity on how I could become number one in a search engine. And I knew right there and then, here I was in Michigan, and I was able to be number one out of 8 million results. And I just saw that I had to be involved in that industry. So I started that company in 98, 99, grew it to about 60, 65 people, and then was able to exit. First in 2007, we sold to a private equity group out of Chicago and a local investor who was a former NBC executive. And then 3 or 4 years later, we sold a second time to a public company, which was in about December 2011.
I think that's when I first met you, 2007. I remember coming into your office and being so amazed at everything that you had accomplished. Very impressive. You also have a nickname, the Domainer. Can you tell me how you sort of develop that name and
Sure.
what you do with these domains these days?
Sure. So my passion is in domain names. Some people buy physical real estate. I invest in domain names, which are .coms or digital real estate. And at my peak, I probably had maybe 4,000 domain names in my portfolio, which may seem like a lot, but I know people that own hundreds of thousands of domain names. And I started early on in 98, 99 when I was in law school, but I still kicked myself in the rear that I still wasn't registering what we'll call dictionary terms. So any word that you can find in a dictionary, which today would sell for 6 or 7 figures. And, over the course of the years, I've sold, random domain names for a few $1,000s, tens of thousands of dollars, $1 million. And I bought domain names for tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But that's my passion. People like football, people like reading, people like fishing. I love domain names and finding the right one that I can actually build a business around.
Right. A different kind of real estate.
Correct. Because it defines you. When you own, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but when you own a longisland.com or you own, a category defining domain name, it kind of levels the playing field in so many ways and gives you so many advantages.
Right. So in 2007, all of that experience of basically selling a company, what sounds like twice, not just once, what did that experience do for you? What did you learn from it? How did it impact your life?
Well, I learned a lot, from a perspective of, I was definitely young. I'm 47 now. So back then I was certainly new. When the first time I heard the word EBITDA, I had no idea what it meant or the definition. I learned very quickly. So, I literally learned about negotiating and the value of a business, very quickly. Steve Rosenberg, the gentleman who first, I don't want to say found me, but sought me out to invest in the business, really taught me a tremendous amount, was a great mentor to me. But it was, also financially life-changing at a young age. 3 boys, family. So the financial freedom was great, but then it was figuring out what to do next. So, I try to take off a week or two, literally from closing. And I always say it was harder to be a parent than to run a business, with all the logistics, if you will.
Yes.
So, it got to a point where I was able to now focus, not that I didn't focus on what I enjoy doing, but also when I sold the business, I thought I had to start answering to people and investors and, starting to hit certain targets, and the business was no longer, I don't want to say not under my control, but it had different destination because there was a much larger vision. They had acquired us and an ad network. So there was a much bigger vision of putting together a boutique search firm with a much larger ad network and, having the two, be a marriage. And they were in Arizona and I, of course, was in New York. So, so when I had that ability to finally step away, it was like, what do I want to be when I grow up? And wasn't pressured about worrying to make the next, living, paycheck to paycheck, which is interesting how I built the business, but gave me the opportunity to go ahead and start exploring what I really was passionate about.
Yeah, what an opportunity. Given the impact of social media today on our culture, how is social media impacting your family?
Yeah, I have 3 boys, 1 in college, 2 in high school. I see them on there, probably too much more time than I'd like for them to be on it, because I see it as, mostly a time suck or, no productivity being accomplished when you're on there, watching videos. There are ways to leverage it and utilize it. And I do see opportunities when that does happen. I have one son that does graphic design and social media for sports. He's in college. So he truly leverages, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, he's doing it from a strategy and business perspective, if you will, but watching, videos, mindless videos for hours. And I used to look at the, we're on this unlimited data plan, but when it used to come in and I would see I'm running a multi-million-dollar business on 4 gigs and my kids are using 20, 30, 40 gigs of data. And I don't comprehend that's even possible.
Right.
But, it's from live streaming or whatever they're watching. So I think it's dangerous. But they know how I feel. And, it's something that we have to live with, whether we like it or not. It's just a question of, like anything else, how you let it affect your life.
Yeah, thank you. We're all somewhat addicted to it. Recently read a book called Reset Your Child's Brain by a Dr. Victoria Dunkley. And it's a very interesting book because it does speak to coming off it a bit and reorienting what life is really about, as opposed to just sort of looking at emails and trying to get whether or not somebody's looking for us. So it really is a unique time, I think, in our culture and in society.
You're watching Opportunity Calls with Ellen Volpe, presented by ABA, American Business Associates. To learn more about ABA, visit aba-ny.com.